37 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And we are moving on to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Now, this is a team over the past couple of years that has kind of just come out of left field. It's a Coastal Carolina team that really has stepped things up and proven that they are one of the better group of 5 teams out there in the nation's landscape. However, there comes a lot of problems this year. When you look at this overall roster, they lose a lot of talent from a season ago. I know there's been a lot of questions defensively, but offensively, this team loses a lot as well. However, there are a couple key pieces that come back for this team, along with some transfers coming in. So can Coastal Carolina push their way yet again for another chance at a Sun Belt title in 2022? Or is this a Coastal Carolina team that's going to take a step back after all they've lost? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And for fans of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers out there, you guys are going to know a lot more about this team than I do. So if you feel like I missed something and you want to add something, please feel free. Leave it in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. Coastal Carolina 2022, they're my second-ranked team in the Sun Belt Conference coming in to the 2022 college football season. The Chanticleers went 11-2 last year. They were 6-2 overall in conference. Did come away with a bowl game win, which was an amazing game to watch against Northern Illinois, the champions of the Mid-American Conference. This is a Coastal Carolina team that I really like heading into this next year. However, there are problems. But when you take a look at the stats from a season ago, they're very impressive. Offensively, hey, this was one of the better teams in the nation offensively. 494 yards with 41 points per game. And defensively, you could argue this was also the best defense in the Sun Belt Conference. 325 yards with 20 points per game. That's it. This team was good offensively, good defensively. It was an all-around very good team that, again, pushed their way for a chance at a spot in the Sun Belt Championship, which ultimately they fell short of to App State. Now, to App State and Louisiana. Now, there are a lot of key pieces that leave this team. However, there is a key piece coming back in their head coach. Jamey Chadwell is still there as that head coach. But when you look at the talent that is leaving this team, it is immense. Starting off with the offensive side and in the running back room, Shamari Jones, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, averaged 6.5 yards per carry with 1,040 yards and 13 touchdowns, is gone. Also kind of a late third, fourth stringer Christian Malloy is gone, but losing Shamari Jones, that's the big loss. You also lose your 2 top targets from a season ago. Javon Hiley, 1,128 yards on 66 catches for 7 touchdowns, and tight end Isaiah Likely, 912 yards and 12 touchdowns a season ago for him. Wide receiver Cameron Brown, that should be spelled with a K, not a C, my apologies, was the 3rd leading receiver on this team. So actually you lose your top 3 targets. Brown had 605 yards and 5 touchdowns from a season ago. So your 3 top guys from last year are all moving on from Coastal Carolina University. And when you take a look at the defensive side, I mean, it just doesn't stop there. Jeffrey Gunter, CJ Brewer, 2 absolute studs on the defensive line. Gunter had 5.5 sacks a season ago. CJ Brewer was a top 5 tackler on this team, had 4.5 sacks, 54 tackles. In the linebacking group, hey, you lose your top 2 tacklers from a season ago. Silas Kelly had 109 of them. Teddy Gallagher had 86. Miles Olufeme as well there at the linebacker position. You lose his production there as well. And when you take a look at the defensive back, I mean the production loss just doesn't stop. Alex Spillum, who had 5 passes defended, 2 interceptions, 64 tackles. Inakama Konzo, your 3rd leading tackler, with 67 of them. And then Shaheem Watkins is moving on from this team as well. So, I mean, there are big names gone offensively, defensively. This is a Coastal Carolina team that is losing a butt-ton of talent. But when you look at the key pieces that are coming back, there is one name that is going to stand out to me and should stand out to most college football fans out there. It's definitely going to stand out to Coastal Carolina fans. He's been your quarterback for the past couple seasons, and that's Grayson McCall. What a huge get back it is to get Grayson McCall back on this team. 2,873 yards with around 12 yards per pass. Now again, that yards number is not going to stand out to you, right? It's not over 3,000 yards. But listen to this. Rocked a 73% completion percentage, had a 9-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions from a season ago. This is a very, very good quarterback. Now, Grayson McCall, I think, is due for a 3,000-yard season this year, and I think he can produce, and I think he's going to have to with the loss of Hiley, Brown, and likely his 3 top targets from a season ago, and we'll look at what the wide receiver room could look like this year here in a little bit. You guys can already see it on screen. I'll talk about it, but Grayson McCall, huge that the Chanticleers get him back. In the running back room, you have Braden Bennett, figures to be that number 1 guy, 636 yards, 7 touchdowns last year, but also a key part to his game. He was the 3rd leading receiver on this team, 295 yards and 2 touchdowns from a season ago. 4th leading receiver on this team. Also, Reese White is back there. He had 515 yards and 7 touchdowns. And Grayson McCall, 290 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. So getting back a lot of key rushing groups. When you look at the wide receiver room, you have a running back wide receiver duo in Aaron Bedgood. He's coming back. Tyson Mobley coming back for this team as well. And the tight end replacing likely should be Xavier Gravett. But none of those names really stand out to you. I mean, none of those guys had over 100 yards receiving last year. Braden Bennett is the highest leading receiver coming back on this team, and he's a running back. They bring in Sam Pinckney from Georgia State. That's a huge transfer pickup to add a little bit of experience and some talent to this wide receiver room. Wouldn't be surprised to see Pinckney be that leading receiver when it's all said and done. Defensively, still talent here. Jared Clark is coming back for this team. A nose tackle who had 34 tackles and 2 sacks a season ago. Josiah Stewart is kind of your edge rusher type guy. Had 12 and a half sacks, which by far led the team last year with 43 tackles. He's a huge get back. Couple transfers in the linebacker room with Jamar Brown and Adrian Hope. But you also get JT Killen back for this team. Had 19 tackles and a sack a season ago. And then the defensive back groups, still a lot of nice talent here. DeJordan Strong is coming back. Had 7 passes defended last year. Lance Boykin also coming back. 4 passes defended, 1 interception. Tobias Fletcher is another name there as well. And you could throw some other names out there as well. For all the talent that this Coastal Carolina team lost, they do have a lot of key pieces back. Jamey Chadwell at head coach. Grayson McCall at quarterback. Braden Bennett at running back. They get Pinckney at wide receiver. Your sack leader is coming back. DeJordan Strong is an NFL caliber type player. So this is a Coastal Carolina team that still has talent on it. Definitely, in my opinion, not as talented of a team as they were or as they have been for the past couple of seasons, but a team that can still contend in the Sun Belt Conference. Now, taking a look at this schedule, oh man, this is a tricky schedule for Coastal Carolina. Now, Coastal Carolina may very well prove to be one of the teams that everyone looks at the end of the year with a 7-5, 8-4, maybe even 6-6 record and said, yep, I knew they were going to fall off. Just this is the team that I feel like is going to be a lot better than their record shows because the schedule's pretty difficult. You got to start the season at home against Army. Then you play some home games against Gardner Webb and Buffalo. But that home one at Army really has my attention. And then your other non-conference game comes way late in the year, and it's a road game against the Virginia Cavaliers. What an offensive matchup that is going to be if this Coastal Carolina offense can continue to be as good as it has been in the past couple seasons. When you look in conference play, you have road games against Georgia State, University of Louisiana Monroe, Marshall, and James Madison to cap off the year. And then you got games at home against Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, App State, and Southern Miss. So diving a little bit more into the schedule, this might be Army's best team in recent memory. It's a team that I think can win 9-10 games. But Coastal Carolina gets them at home. And I think we're really going to find out what Coastal Carolina is going to look like in that first game against Army. Army expects to be pretty good. It's a Coastal Carolina team that still expects to be pretty good, but it is an Army team there that also can really put up a fight. Couple non-interesting non-conference games. I mean, Buffalo could prove to be a little bit of a challenge, but Buffalo's losing a lot. Gardner Webb and FCS program. That road game against Virginia really intrigues me because Virginia bringing in a new head coach and Tony Elliott, who was the old offensive coordinator at Clemson. Lots of offensive talent there for that Virginia program. The defense has got to get better, though. So if this Coastal Carolina defense can continue to be what it was, and if the offense can be, I think that's going to be a very interesting game on the road there when those two teams play. Otherwise, when you look in conference play, just a lot of tough games. I mean, on the road against Georgia State, on the road against Marshall, you have to play App State at home, which very well could end up being a game that decides the division. That game on the road against Georgia State could end up helping out some things as well. Even on the road at Marshall. Marshall, I think, is a sneaky contender to contend in the Sun Belt East Division. On the road at James Madison could be fairly difficult. Again, who knows what James Madison is going to look like as an FBS program. Even on the road against ULM, if that team can continue to take steps in the right direction, as they showed last year, winning 4 games. So it's a Coastal Carolina team that loses a lot of talent, comes into this season with some high expectations, with a fairly difficult schedule. This is a Coastal Carolina team that can do that can really overachieve and do some great things, or can really underachieve this year as well. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based. Alex, help me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game is in orange, I still don't see you winning, but it is college football, and upsets can happen. Yellow, you're 50-50, high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. In games in green, I have you winning. So notice there are a lot of games in green on this schedule. I still like the talent that's on this Coastal Carolina team, and I think as long as Jamey Chadwell is that head coach and Grayson McCall is that quarterback like you have this year, I think this is still going to be a solid Coastal Carolina team, a team that's capable of winning 8, 9, maybe 10 games. Overall, though, when I look at this schedule, I mean, wins against Gardner-Webb for sure, Buffalo, Georgia Southern, ULM, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and on the road at James Madison. I think each of those games could end up providing their respective challenges, but I do think Coastal Carolina is going to be able to come out on top and more likely than not win the games. If you're going to look for a loss in those games, I mean, maybe you drop that last game of the year on the road at James Madison. Usually one of the better teams in the FCS, now transitioning into the FBS to the Sun Belt Conference. Southern Miss has a lot coming back, but they had to deal with injuries last year. We'll see how good that team is this year, although you get them at home. On the road at ULM, I think can be a sneaky game if ULM proves that they are a solid team. If they prove that last year's 4 wins were no fluke, right? But the games that interest me here are the games in yellow and then the one game in orange against Virginia. Now, I don't expect Coastal Carolina to go on the road and win that game against Virginia. However, if this is a Coastal Carolina team that proves that, hey, losing all that talent, and then Coastal Carolina proves that, like, hey, losing all that talent, not really that big of a deal. We're still going to be a good football team. We're still going to come out here and be competitive. I think that's going to be a very, very interesting game to watch. But where Coastal Carolina's season is won and lost is the games in yellow. That first game against Army, I think, could be a true omen to say, hey, this is a Coastal Carolina team that's going to be pretty good, or, ooh, this Coastal Carolina team may not be what it's been in the previous couple seasons. Army, going to be a good team this year. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch to open up the season, but I'm leaning towards Coastal Carolina. Home field advantage has been a big thing for Coastal Carolina these past couple of seasons, and I do believe in the talent that's on this Coastal Carolina team. There are some other interesting ones, again, on the road against Georgia State, on the road against Marshall, at home against App State, and all 3 of those games right there, all 3 of those teams, very talented. All 3 of them can push for a spot in this Sun Belt East Division like Coastal Carolina, and all 3 of them can be key games in deciding the division. When I look at this Coastal Carolina team, I do expect a couple steps back in a couple statistical categories. I don't expect their offense to be as good. I don't expect their defense to be as good. However, I'm a believer of what Jamey Chadwell is building. I'm a believer of Grayson McCall, and I'm a believer of Coastal Carolina. I like them to go 9-3 this year and push for a spot in the Sun Belt Championship game. Now, 11-1 is that ceiling. I think, again, if they can fit all the pieces in, and everything just clicks, maybe losing all that talent isn't as big of a deal as we're making it seem. I think this team can be really, really good. I still think this team is going to be pretty good. I got them sitting here at 9-3, which I think is a very good record. I have them pushing for a spot in the Sun Belt title game. You'll have to wait till my standing prediction video to find out if they get there, but I think this is going to be a good team in 2022. Again, as long as Grayson McCall is that quarterback, Jamey Chadwell is that head coach, the Chanticleers are going to be just fine. That's my prediction for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Let me know what you guys think about this team in the comment section below. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I will see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.